If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, right? Because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play. Because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life.
Hey, I'm Colby Jubenville, and welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast at VCE Productions, right inside Nashville, Tennessee, home of country music and country music superstars. We have our own superstars at the table today.
Yes, I like
As
that.
always, to the right, the CEO and founder of the GOAT Family Brands. He's got his new shirt on. We're going to talk about that later today. Tyler Burnett. Tyler, welcome to the show, as always.
Thanks for having me. I can't help but look over here at the shirt across the table.
Yeah, we'll talk
That's
about
my
that here.
thing.
He
My
always
thing.
brings a new T-shirt. He is from Brentwood. We call him the LinkedIn Whisperer. He's the calming force to our show. None other than our good friend in a new T-shirt that you're going to talk about today,
Well,
John Byers. John, I got your first and last name this time. Go ahead and tell us about the shirt
yeah,
today.
luck-
Lucky for me, I'm in Tennessee.
I'm in Tennessee.
Well, thank God you are.
Yeah. Project 615, one of my favorite on the planet. Although, if you're listening, you've really slowed down in your greatness over the last 10 months. I'm not sure what's going on, but
Well,
Just-
lucky for us, John's on the bus, and we're so glad you're here
I'm
today.
yes,
And
thank
you're
you.
and you're part of it. Our show is simple. Number one, it's like Waffle House. We serve it up in a way that you can get it.
Mhm.
Number two, it's about the stages of life. 20s, we taught to get in the game. 30s, we move up in the game. 40s, we try to stay in the game because those 30-year-olds are so damn good. In our 50s, what the research says is we finally ask ourselves, what is it that you really want? As you go through a time today, I hope you ask yourself, what is it that I really want?
Somebody asked me the other day too, or told me, they said, people that do podcasts think they know everything. And I thought, let's just throw that out on this episode because that's not true for us here. Like, we're going to share about all the ways we mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's our thing, right? So
Yeah.
this isn't about, hey, let us impart our wisdom onto you. Quite the opposite, I think.
Yeah, it's what we say, real, raw, relevant.
Ooh,
That's-
that's we got to bring that back.
Yeah, I got to bring that
That's
back.
good.
But you know what goats more than anything in sports, they're easy to see. They're people that are recognized for their greatness. What they do elevates everyone else around them.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady,
Mm.
greatest of all time.
I've got a sport coat. I'm
It-
sorry. Go.
In business, it's a little bit more difficult to see. In business, it's people that compete on unique perspective, education, and experience. What they do gives them energy. It gives other people energy. It creates new levels of challenge and new levels of opportunity. We put this podcast together, and we're really a quick cast. We're a car ride to work and a car ride home, but we put it together because the phone calls that we have were so interesting, at least to me and you and hopefully our audience, that we said, hey, we need to start recording these. And so each time that we get together around the table right here in VCE Productions, we talk about one topic. And for today, and we get to the blocking and tackling of that. Today, what we're talking about is this thing called adversity quotient. What we know about emotional intelligence, what we know is that it's the number one predictor of performance in the workplace. We know that. Number two, we know that it can be taught and learned. And number three, we know that those that have it perform at a higher level than those that don't.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I know is that Colby's IQ at 10 is the same at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50. Colby's personality, and that's little Colby too. I'm sorry, I'm boring you.
Little Jack Jubenville.
little Jack Jubenville. My personality at 10 is not much different at 20 and 30 and 40. When I'm in the grocery store and I'm checking out and I'm mad because there's other people that have a bunch of stuff in their shopping cart.
They're in the 10-item lane.
Yeah, there's
They
little Colby
They got 11 items.
saying, "Can I
He's
get
pissed off.
something? Can I get a Twix bar right there? Can I
Oh,
get
okay.
out? Can I get out here?" And I have to say, "Little Colby, you got to stop. We're gonna go to the grocery store. And everything's gonna be okay." So we have that in us, right? We all do. You
All
know
right.
you do.
Yes. It is. It is.
And so the point is
Yes,
that
please.
the point is that today we're going to, the one thing that you can change is not your IQ, is not your personality, but it's your emotional intelligence. And we're going to spend the next 25 minutes talking about this thing called adversity quotient, AQ,
Mm-hmm.
and why that's such a critical part to emotional intelligence. And I know that you have some thoughts on this.
Well, I do, but I'm going to share a GOAT first. And
As you should.
when I think about, and I'm going to take us back to sports here, just the GOAT. September 8th, 1990, 43-year-old Nolan Ryan is on the mound pitching to one of the greatest teams, they say, in baseball. You had the Kansas City Royals in the other dugout. You had George Brett, Bo Jackson, who was at the mound in this particular play. Nolan Ryan pitches a pitch to Bo Jackson. I mean, who is also certainly a GOAT, right? I mean, Bo knows everything. He certainly knows GOATness. Bo's at the plate, hits a ball into Nolan Ryan's face. Like, hits him in the face.
Yeah.
And what does Nolan Ryan do in that adversity moment? He picks up the ball, gets Bo Jackson out at first base. That's the first thing he does. This is Bo Jackson who breaks bats off his knees, right? Like, this is the metal bats, not the wooden ones, the metal bats.
That's actually his quad. It was not his knee. It was his quad.
Okay. There we go. Little Colby coming out of now. So Bo Jackson gets him out at first, steps off the mound, takes some time, just took a Bo Jackson ball off the face, stays in the game for 7 more innings, strikes 8 people out, 17 more outs total, and blood just the whole time he's licking the blood off his face that gets onto it because he wanted to minimize the amount of blood on his jersey.
Yeah.
That's Nolan Ryan, the GOAT. Still, I think maybe has some certain fastball records, something. I don't know if he's got. It's controversial, but anyways, he's the GOAT.
Pre-steroid.
Yes.
Well,
Nolan Ryan.
hey, so
Nolan Ryan.
if that happened to a player while Coach Pete was coaching, what would Coach Pete have said to that player?
I can tell you from one experience that I had with Coach Pete. My sophomore year, I swung and missed at a changeup. This was February. You can start practicing, I believe, February the 1st, and this was February the 1st.
Okay.
We were having a scrimmage game, and I swung and missed, and I had a shooting pain in my elbow. The next pitch, I hit a double, got on second, and I said, hey, somebody come get me. So I go back, and the trainer says, I think you broke your hook of the hamate, this bone right here in your hand. So we went to the doctor, MTSU training room, got a quick X-ray. I fractured my hamate. So after practice, I get with Coach Pete. We go to the office.
Just to be clear, you fractured your hand by not hitting the ball.
Swung and missed. Yeah, the way the knob rotates in your hand, it's not a matter of if you're going to break it, but when, if you play long enough.
Jeez.
So most guys get it cut out in the off season in pro ball. A lot of times. I wouldn't say most guys, because you're just that same pressure rubbing right there over and over. But I went in and talked to Coach Pete after practice, and I told him, I said, I broke my hamate bone, and he said, all right, let me tell you about this one time when I was in college.
Of course he did.
And
oh, boy.
I was catching, and I took a foul tip off the thumb, and it split my thumb all the way down to here. And guess what I did? I taped it up and kept playing. And I said, well, that's not the option they gave me. So it was 8 weeks rehab or 6 weeks if you got it cut out.
Wow.
And so he said, all right, so what you going to do? And I said, I'm going to get it cut out. So I got it cut out, played 21 days after surgery, and we kept trucking along. But that's just one of the great Pete stories.
Coach Pete's always a worthy GOAT.
Well, and the
he
story
is, but we're going to talk about GOATs here. Can I share my GOAT?
I thought you did.
Just did.
I'm going to go Tiger Woods.
Okay.
Oh.
The miraculous comeback
for sure.
Yeah, and all the stuff he's dealt with from a marriage standpoint to from a health and surgery standpoint, and the way he was able to compartmentalize those things and go out there and focus and be in the grind with all the distractions around, and how he could put it behind him and come back. I can't wait to see what he does now. I mean, I have no idea what's going to come of this from the accident that he just had several weeks ago.
Better.
And who cares if he plays golf again anymore? I hope he's okay. But it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, if you could come back twice like that, I couldn't imagine there's anybody else in the world that could do that.
All right.
Yeah, and
That's a good one.
I'm looking at Genesis as a car these days, because if you can survive with that car and that kind of crash, then that's definitely fits the theme for today's show.
It rolled
which is,
7 times, right?
Yes, yes. How do you use adversity to accelerate growth?
And talk about this article by Kevin Chin, Inc.com, which is kind of what helped prompt this episode. But talk a little bit about that and kind of where that has led us.
Well, emotional intelligence typically is broken into 4 pieces, right? The first part is self-awareness. The second part is self-regulation. The third part is social awareness. And then the fourth part is relationship management. And so what I think this article does is take a step further below those 4 big ideas and says that out of all those, it's the adversity that you experience that ultimately sets the stage for your level of emotional intelligence, the ability for you to be self-aware, self-regulate, social awareness, and relationship management. Your ability to use adversity to accelerate growth. One thing that we know about struggle is it helps us think better, communicate better, and make better decisions.
I think that's why sports are can be so good for kids. Because you have to battle through the adversity, especially take baseball, for instance. You fail 7 out of 10 times and you're a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
And me and Brian were having the conversation today. You could see that something was going to happen in our schedule and that we were able to, and I'm not saying that I'm great by any stretch of the imagination, but I was able to be ahead of it and understand, like, hey, we need to do this, or I think this is going to happen today with weather or whatever it may be. And we got to talking about it, because later on we realized it was the right decision. I was like, why do you think that we're able to do that and have that consciously to make a decision ahead of the schedule? And he's like, I think it's sports. I think it's baseball. I think it's you're playing shortstop and it's the 8th inning and there's a runner on second base and you know the score, you know the inning, you know who's pitching, you know who's hitting, you know the field conditions, you know who you have in left field behind you and who's in center field. And if, you know, you're preparing all the time. So that preparation through sports can help you prepare for this right here when you get in the adult world.
It's the adversity.
Yeah, and here's one of the things that I disagree with in the article. And Kevin Chin writes about adversity quotient, in his opinion, is more important than the other 2. IQ, which I probably can sell that argument, but I'm not sure it's more important than emotional intelligence. But here's probably my favorite quote from the article. He says, the key determinant of success and winning in business is adversity quotient. EQ and IQ are important, but insufficient without adversity quotient. Without AQ, the success of your team will always be finite. So that was probably my favorite quote. But the overall article, it just kind of...
I agree with that.
No, I agree with that quote. I like it.
It's totally right.
Do you agree that adversity quotient is more important than EQ?
I think I do.
Do you?
But here's why. It's the catalyst. You cannot be self-aware until you go through so much struggle that somebody says to you or the world punches you in the face and you have to face it. We put kids through college. We pat them on the back their whole career. And we say, hey, John, you can be anything you want to be. And at 18, we say, hey, John, I don't care what you do. Just get out of the house. And so you go and you look around and all your friends are going to college. And so you say, hey, I'm going to go to college too. And you go to college. And you do everything that they say to do. You got to take this many hours. You got to take these classes. And you'll get this degree. And you get the degree and you go out to the world and you go, hey, world, here I am.
Hire me.
Hire me. I have nothing to say. I really can't articulate my value. I've never really had any struggle to learn what my value is to the world. We live in the knowledge economy, and it says 2 things. Number 1, know and understand your value. And number 2, put yourself in a position to use it. What I think Chin is saying is that you can't do either until you take it on the chin. Did you see how I tie that together?
Yeah, it was
Chin
good.
and chin.
So that was well done.
That went right by you like a
Can
Nolan.
we say that these days?
Like a
Can we say-
Nolan Ryan fastball that just went right freaking by you.
I'm offended by that. EQ and IQ are important, but insufficient requirements. I agree with the statement, but I just think the whole purpose of us existing is connection. And EQ is what allows us to do that, not the fact that I took something on the chin. Again, both are important, but I think he kind of ranks them in the article, and that's what I don't like.
Maybe
Kevin
with
Chin. You messed it up ranking it for me.
Maybe with some emotional intelligence, you can avoid adversity.
But I still think he's right. I still think he's right. You think about our relationship. Where is the connection really, really happening? Where does the connection really happen? It's in the struggle.
It's true. I mean, I think about and this. I'm not sure this is going to support my argument here, but I think about a personal story with John David a few years ago. He was a wrestler. He wrestled 4 or 5 years, and it was cool because that was kind of my sport growing up, as I was a wrestler. And so in wrestling, you don't necessarily have to be tied to your team. So one of the cool things about our relationship, at least for me, I don't think it was so much for him, is that we would be able to travel together and I could just coach him. And so we could just go randomly to tournaments. So when we would go to visit family in Georgia, we'd find a tournament, I'd put him in, and I'd go coach him. So it was a really unique, cool experience. And we were in Georgia one particular weekend, and I entered him into 2 weight classes. Was it weight or age? Anyways, I can't remember. But he wrestled 12 matches that weekend, which is a lot because normally you'll wrestle 5 or 6.
Yeah.
The very first match of the weekend, he comes off after the match and he's like, my finger's hurting, and he was bleeding right up under his cuticle. And I'm like, well, it looks like maybe the kid's fingernail scratched it. And he couldn't shake it. I mean, this is a tough kid, and he just couldn't shake it. Well, all that to say, he ended up going he won 11 of the 12 matches that weekend. He won both of his weight classes that he was in, age, whatever it was. And a couple weeks later, finger's still hurting. We take him to the doctor, and he had fractured the growth plate under his pinky.
Yeah.
The very first match, and kept wrestling. That is adversity quotient.
Yes.
Right? Does that help him connect? And I mean, the emotional intelligent piece is what I think is critical to life.
Yes, I think it does.
But so help me understand that.
Well, for the first time,
and he's a stud, right? So I want to help me connect with
this
the story.
was John David.
Yeah.
For the first time, he's developed a level of self-awareness that he didn't have before. And the awareness is in, can I stand in this moment and do what I need to do to finish this, or do I walk back, take a step back from it? The second thing that it does is teach regulation, self-regulation, the ability to regulate in a moment of conflict, which is what we need to teach people how to do. So those 2 pieces right there were built, the awareness and the regulation were built because of the adversity that he faced, and it sped up the ability to grow.
Okay. All right, I can get behind that.
I have a similar story. I broke my navicular bone.
Navicular.
In playing football. We played UAB.
Is this when you try to take on the big dog?
Yeah, he's like 6'6", 300 pounds, and
little Colby thought he could take it.
Little Colby thought he could take it. So I thought I was going to get smart, and I was going to jump off sides, and I was going to pop him underneath his chin and let him know who I was. And so I did. Got called for the penalty. And when I did, I broke my navicular bone up underneath his chin. And so I had to play the rest of the game with that navicular bone.
God, Coach Pete would have been so proud of you.
I know. Well, and so I went to Ranniger, and, he called me Corey.
Yes, he did.
Because why would anybody name their kid Colby?
And he pointed like this.
Like this. He said, well, Corey, does it hurt? And, I mean, it's swollen. I'm like, yes, sir, it hurts. Well, I mean, are you hurt or are you injured? Can you still play? Mm-hmm. So I played for
That's such a good coach question. Are you hurt or are you injured?
Yeah. So I go play for 2 more weeks, and then I go to the doctor on my own, and it was broken. And I learned how to manage and regulate through a very difficult time, which is what, in my opinion, a lot of what life is about.
Yes. So here's a thought that I had, because I'm in this struggle still, And I don't know why I feel like I need to rank which is more important. Maybe it's Kevin's fault. It's Kevin Shin's fault because he ranks them. I'm not okay with that. Clearly, I have all kinds of feelings about it. So
Yeah, because you're seeing it as a hierarchy.
yes, and it's not. They're both. He says they're both important. All that to say, let me tell you something that really helps me. And again, getting back to trying to be practical in our podcasts, our quick casts here, right?
Yeah.
How can we tie in both? And I think whether it's people that we work with, our kids, our spouse, any kind of relationship, how can we build both at the same time? We ask those that we want to dive deeper into relationship with, tell me about a time where you face adversity and how you push through.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when we know that about people, first of all, I think it challenges our EQ to be able to ask that question of somebody because it's vulnerable, requires them to be vulnerable to answer. But if you can get a good answer, how much more do we learn about somebody and their ability to push through in their life, how they faced the AQ or how they grew their AQ, I should say.
Yeah. What is your thought from
There's
a
a
30-year-old
practical
perspective?
I mean, I agree with all of the above that we've discussed.
Yeah.
It's important to learn how to build relationships.
So does that mean with me or with Colby? Because
I agree.
Kevin Chin.
I agree. It's not a hierarchy.
I don't know
They're
why
both.
I'm feeling so
they're-
contentious.
I know you are.
It's that
but
shirt.
I need some tequila in my spindrift.
Yeah, Jay
Calm
gave us
me
these
down here.
spindrift. What really is in there?
We're not
Because
sure.
it says the tagline
this
says,
time.
"Yep, that's it."
So, yeah.
So what is it? So your response is, "I agree with all."
I agree that it's not a hierarchy.
Do you
he
think that
doesn't
you-
have a very
do-
high
do you
AQ to be able
think
to
that-
say that kind of
do-
thing.
Do you think that adversity is important for people
I know it
to
is.
grow?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that without it, that we can grow?
I think it's a critical part of the recipe for success in business and relationships.
It's like the
here's-
dough on the pizza.
Here's
Yes.
what I know is that from birth that we are hardwired to handle adversity. It is in our DNA
Mm-hmm.
to handle adversity.
Mhm. Yep.
And the biggest opportunity we have as parents for our children is to put them in moments where they can struggle and figure that out.
But
I
I think
can-
there's some people that don't do that. And
Well,
that's why their
I
kids struggle with
I
when they
would
list
say-
it instead of loving it.
I would say
and have
that
the
there's
opportunity.
way to tie it back together. I
Well
would say
done.
that's the majority, but I'll share this as we start to bring the Southwest Plain to ground.
I was raised by two completely different two different styles, like 100%.
Okay.
My parents divorced at one. My dad loved to put me in difficult situations and challenge me and push me, and my mom just wanted me to be happy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that if I would have grown up with just my mom, maybe I would be a little happier, but I wouldn't be able to battle through any kind of adversity. Whereas I was with my dad more of the time, and now I see adversity. It's not like, oh man, this is happening to me. It's like, all right, this is what I got coming. What do I do? What do I do to mitigate it or
To make up for it. So
To make up for it, so-
And Kevin, I think you need to revise this statement. EQ, IQ, and AQ are all important, but insufficient without the other two.
I like that. I think that's fair. I can remember when I went to Millsaps and went out and practiced football for the first week and go through classes where I'm assigned 300 pages of reading. And I've never
Fun.
read 300 pages in my life. And I'm laying there on a plastic mattress in a dorm saying to myself, that's sticking to me as I'm laying in bed.
Wow.
And I'm saying to myself, why did I sign up for this? And so I called my mom, because that's the only person you can call at that moment. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm in the wrong place. I'm getting beat up on the football field every day. I've been assigned 300 pages of reading. You know that I don't like to read because my eyes are all jacked up. So I'm coming home. And my mom said, nope, you're in the right place. You're exactly where you need to be. And you need to keep doing it and call me back when you have just a little bit of success. And she hung up the phone.
Wow. Mom, come
And so I made a B-. My first semester at Millsaps was D. That was it. And I made a B in a history class. And I called my mom and I said, I made a B- on this test. And she said, if you'll just keep doing that every week, little by little, you'll start to get better.
And now you're Dr. Jubenville.
By the grace of God, I am Dr. Jubenville. I am Dr. Jubenville, and for my good friend Tyler Burnett, my good friend John Byers,
Thank
and
you.
right here in VCE Productions in Nashville, Tennessee, I'm Colby Jubenville. We've had a little adversity together today around the table,
That's why it's good.
and this is the Go Consulting Podcast.
Boom.